Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name's Diana Wynand, and we are here co-hosting with the Orange County Climate Reality Chapter. And before we actually get started with introductions, we have a few things we want to share with you. So I'm just going to share my screen and go into our presentation mode. Welcome to the Ask Sean show. Woo! Thunderous applause. And you will meet your host, Sean Armstrong, in just a minute. And this is sponsored by his organization, Redwood Energy and Climate Reality Project, specifically San Fernando Valley and Orange County chapters, and maybe more as we go along. So we welcome anybody here that's representing a different chapter to let us know if you're interested in hosting. Before we get too far in, we just want to acknowledge Juneteenth Day as being Freedom Day. That's a long time coming, and we're so glad it's here. And we also want to acknowledge that this is Pride Month, so we honor both pride and freedom. And we want to share this very short video with you. It's about 57 seconds long. If you were around in 1961, you may remember it, but let's take a watch.
You can make your family's life much brighter. You can do it much better. It's as easy as you need to. One more time for fun. For travelers to save their time and energy too. You don't have to work and save, but electricity for you. You can have your cake and you can eat it. Like sweet, it's hard to.
Very funny. Let's see.
Now I'm curious, that was a little blurry sounding for me. Did you hear it well?
No, I think we have to turn off our video when we share it next time.
Okay.
Or have Sean do it.
Anyway,
All right, we'll do that. That's going to be our headline. But did anybody remember the video from way back when? Or that was something? Well, again, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Diana Wynand. Tristan, say hi.
Hey, I'm Tristan Miller, the vice chair here of the Climate Reality Chapter. It's great to see you guys.
And we are so excited. We're just going to talk for a second about what you're going to learn. I mean, you're going to get hopefully tons of good ideas about how to go electric. You're going to learn how to use the plug, turn off your gas and plug things in. Hopefully that will jumpstart your process and your transition to electric. Tristan, what else are we going to learn?
Well, what I love about this show is it's kind of the first of its kind where you can actually ask your own personal questions so that you can be on your own personal electrification journey. And I started it from my health. I could tell that my gas stove was causing issues for my children. I don't know if you've heard that fact that over 40, having gas increases asthma in children upwards of 42%. And so that was one of the reasons why I started my journey. And, you know, when we met Sean, we knew it was going to be a fun, you know, affordable, easy to do kind of electrification journey because it can be really overwhelming. We wanted to make it really easy and you have access to some of the best information, the best tips, the most, you know, exciting new products, and to have a really great Q&A so that we can all help each other and we can learn from Sean and we can learn from each other. So we hope that you can be really interactive. We're going to record some of these you know, shows each month. It's the third Monday of every month. And that way you can watch them over and we will share some resources and links and all that so that we can make the electrification journey doable because it's so important. It's a way to reduce emissions and reduce our carbon footprint and reduce our electric bills.
Perfect, Tristan. Thank you so much. And without further ado, we want to introduce to you Sean Armstrong. He's managing principal of Redwood Energy up in Northern California. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let Sean take it away. Sean, did everybody get to say hello, to see your face? Let's just,
Here I am. I'm still on
okay.
video.
If you guys
Yeah.
go up to view and choose side-by-side speaker, you'll get to see Sean as he presents. Take it away, Sean.
Hey, okay, so I just want to encourage you all to put comments in the chat, to interrupt, take yourself off mute and ask a question as you go along. I'm a former high school science teacher, and so I like it. I'm totally excited for people to ask questions, the whole point of this. Then I spent like 6 years as a development project manager, and I got to start an affordable housing company, which is why I'm really into pricing, because I had a job of being a cost estimator. So for the last 11 years, I've been a consultant. Okay, that's my quick, here I am, hello. Then I was gonna share a couple of fun stuff with you. So I grew up in a rural electric co-op. 60% of the land mass of our country is electrified by a government program from 1935 to 59. I just wanna remind you that government can get it done. I think that's what we need to be thinking about. The utilities took a sort of non-governmental approach. Instead, they did incentives, and they had a #1 television show on Sunday nights. And it was advertisements in the middle. You saw that little jingle at the beginning. So that was essentially to push nuclear power, which at that time was clean energy. And that's really the reason we're doing it now. And then there's the fun parts. So this is one of the many examples of all electric hotels that are built in Hawaii. And I just want you to know that like one of the nicest parts of our country is mostly all electric and always has been. So like the Waikiki Beach Hilton, where like a blue Elvis went to do all of his Hawaii movies, that was an all electric hotel that he was at, that he always stayed at every time he went. It's the Hilton's place, you can see in the bottom right there. We have gotten off the electrification train just because we had a bad time in 1973. And it took us about 20 years, but by 1993, only 20 years later, since then, our country has been electrifying disproportionately because it's just cheaper to build. So we're not wild and crazy. It's just California, we got so freaked out by the 2000 energy crisis that we've been the worst state in the United States. We've only had 1% all electric construction. We're right now in the South, the American South, it's 80%. 1% versus 80%. That's how bad California has been. Okay, so on average in the country, it's cheaper to go with the heat pump than the very best gas this or that on average. It's in every single state, it's a greenhouse gas move. It saves greenhouse gases to put a heat pump in. Okay, and so that was the last little intro. I'm gonna be working through this book. It's online and it's free. It's our guide to single family retrofits. And this will be the context where I try to answer questions by referring to this page or that page, because there's good resources there. And we're gonna start with Diana. So Diana's here. This is her house. She sent me pictures ahead of time. And so going forward, like next Monday, the third Monday of the month, you all are welcome to send pictures of your house and your appliances and such. And I can give you some quick recommendations like this. So here we have a 100 amp panel. That all electric movement that I mentioned the utilities were doing, they succeeded in getting the 1962 code, the electrical code, and all the other building codes attached to it to allow for all electric construction, which meant 100 amp service, which is what Diana has. She has enough for a 1962 era all electric home. Now, over here on the left, this is her stuff. She's got a gas furnace and a gas water heater. There's two pictures of gas water heater. And these are both 60 to 70% efficient devices. The gas water heater is probably 60%. The furnace is probably closer to 70% when installed. And efficiency drops, of course, like any product does. The way it drops in gas is that the burners get clogged with particulate. They don't burn as cleanly. The ductwork starts to fail. That's just heat distribution, but things are not as efficient. So your utility bills, Diana, might go down by going in with heat pumps. So if you wanted to go after your space heating system, I saw that you had a gas wall furnace, and you would put a box about the exact same size where that gas wall furnace is, like this here, this box here, your gas wall furnace. Well, it's not a wall furnace. It's on the wall. It's a gas furnace that's upright. Pardon me, I misspoke. Anyway, there's going to be a box that goes there that's about the same size. And it'll be an air conditioner and a heat pump. We'll do both. And you can just put one more or less right there. I call it box swapping. We call it, but we've been joking around. And same thing with the water heater. You're going to put in a heat pump water heater in the same place. That's about the same size. You should be able to fit both of them in there without a problem. This is probably what your heat pump would look like. If we were just doing a straight out, don't change your heat distribution system, the duct work, the vents, leave that there. You would just put this outside on a cement pad if you have an air conditioner now. And if you want to take yourself off mute, Diana, do you have an air conditioner or are you just heating only right now?
I have an air conditioning, but they're separate units.
Okay, so do you know where your air conditioning unit sits? The outside and the inside parts?
Yeah, the outside, as you said, on a concrete slab. Look,
Okay.
and they look about like this. It's, yeah, carrier.
Oh, perfect. Well, then this is what you should do, Diana. You should get a carrier heat pump. And where your air conditioner sits now is where your fan coil will sit for the heat pump. It'll do the air conditioning and heating. And you can abandon that gas furnace and the ductwork that's connected to it potentially, because you already have ductwork for the air conditioning, right? So just use that for your heating and your cooling. And that'd be easy. And all the
Got it.
wiring will be there for it. You're going to, I encourage you to think about not putting in electric resistance. These heat pumps and our climate in California do not need any electric resistance. The reason why is you have a 100 amp panel and you could get by with just like 10 to 20 amps of heating and cooling if you don't do electric resistance, which you don't need. But someone might encourage, and that will make it like 30 amps or 40 amps. And that just, you only have a 100 amp panel and it makes a big mess of things. You just don't need it.
John, can you explain electric resistance?
Sure. So toaster element, when you look in the toaster, you're seeing electric resistance. A heat pump is a solar thermal collector. It just absorbs heat from the air, which has been heated by the sun. So it's a solar thermal collector, just like the ones on the roof that do water, but this is souped up because it uses better refrigerants than the solar thermal panels on the roof. It uses refrigerants that boil at -50 Fahrenheit, so they can always absorb heat at -50 Fahrenheit. Whereas the stuff up like propylene glycol that goes in solar thermal panels on the roof, it doesn't even boil. So this stuff boils at these super cold temperatures, which means it can always absorb heat from the air outside. And you just pull it inside. And that's a heat pump.
Thank you.
It just collects the heat that's already there. So 1 unit of electricity into a toaster element gets you about 1 unit of energy out, like 0.95. 1 unit of that same electricity into one of these heat pumps gets about 3 units of heat, or 4, even 5 on like a good day. Definitely 3. And there's your water heater. So you have like, it looks like a 40-gallon gas water heater on a pedestal is what I saw. And Rheem makes a 40-gallon heat pump water heater. These other brands don't. No one else makes a 40-gallon like you have. And you could just get a 40-gallon. Now, Wendy asks, what about a tankless water heater? So the tankless water heaters rely on really concentrated energy in gas. So they bring in tons of explosive, high potential gas, and they have a small amount of space that they burn it. Heat pumps don't work that way. They sort of filter feed a relatively not heat dense amount of like heat out of the air, so they work slowly. And by comparison, say a gas on-demand water heater might produce 80,000 to 120,000 BTUs per hour, British thermal units of heat. 80,000 to 120,000 versus a heat pump water heater is about 4,500. And a gas tank is about 40,000. So we're going to go from 40,000 down to 4,500 by going with the heat pump. And that means it's all about the storage volume. So you might go up to a 50-gallon tank. So you just have a little extra hot water. And that, I run a 50-gallon tank in my house, and that's enough for like a 30 to 40-gallon bathtub, like a really deep clawfoot bathtub experience, or 3 or 4 showers in a row. That's 50 gallons is fine for that. It's not good for like 5 or 6 showers in a row. You're just not going to be able to pull that off. Diana, how long do you shower? Oh, you're muted, so I can't hear you say, I shower for 45 minutes.
Yeah, I said about that, yeah. No,
Okay,
I hear,
well-
I hear what you're saying is, yeah, are all of these pretty much the same if you go to the 50 gallon?
Yeah, 50-gallon costs a few $100s more to purchase. And I would recommend generally having 50 gallons. If you're going from a 40-gallon gas tank, go to a 50-gallon heat pump tank, and that will prevent you from running out. But if you're just a single person or 2 people in a house, a 10-gallon tank is often enough. 30-gallon tank is more than enough. 40 and 50 starts becoming excessive if it's just 1 or 2 people who just take showers. But if you're going to stay in that house for a long time or sell it to somebody else, then maybe a 50-gallon tank is a good long-term investment. I have a heat pump water here that's 30 gallons, and I asked my tenant, it's just 1 shower that it serves, how long of a shower she could take with that. And after 35 minutes in the shower, she got out. She's like, I just can't stand in the shower any longer. I'm running out of patience with this. She was like, okay, 30 gallons is certainly enough for someone who's depressed with a toothache, waking up in the middle of the night, whose only recourse is a shower. That's enough. Okay, and there are, Rheem is also coming out with 120 volt tanks next month. We've been working with them for years now, and Rheem is coming out with a plug-in anywhere tank. So all of these right now, you have to get a new electrical service line over there, 240 volt line. And these have electric resistance backup. So you need to have usually 30 amps, although Tom pointed out that there are 15 amp models of the Rheem. Now they're making ones that are not 240 volt special wiring, but 120 volt, plug it in anywhere. I have one, works great. So Rheem is making those. So if you, I would recommend that generally to go in that direction of getting a plug in anywhere. So I'm gonna get a little star on it there. And Susan wanted to say, oh, Wendy wants to say which one's best. Well, which one's best? Stiebel Eltron is the #1 brand in Germany, and they've been making this heat pump water here in the United States since 1985, and this is the best. Stiebel Eltron is the best engineered, period. You know, it's like the grandson of Stiebel Eltron. It's the #1 brand in Germany. These people engineer well, but you're gonna pay for it. And the smallest tank is 58 gallons because they want extra storage. So it takes up a little more space, but it is the best, quote unquote. After that, it's kind of neck and neck, Rheem and A.O. Smith. Truly, like they're kind of the same. The little tiny tweaks back and forth. And Bradford White's a little bit the less expensive one. That's always like the one coming behind that is, you know, a little bit cheaper and a little bit less efficient. And it's just like, it's that product in the market. You know what that is. So it's kind of left to right from quality, I would say.
Hey, Sean, I heard some early feedback on the Stiebel Eltron that it's noisy. Do you, the early ones were noisy. Do you have any complaints about that?
You know, they are all in the 52 to 55 decibels range, all these products. And they're kind of noisy. Rheem used to advertise 49 decibels, but they stopped during COVID because they ran out of access to fans. There's been a problem all over the world with COVID supply chains, is getting access to quiet fans. So I would say that if you're going to install them, that if you're going to put it inside your house, which is like a good place to put them, you need to insulate the closet that they go around and put them on a vibration pad like you would a washing machine, you know, so it doesn't at all create vibration in your house and it doesn't create sound that goes through, because it's kind of like an old-fashioned fridge, kind of noisy, and it has that, it's got a little compressor on it. So I think for like a nice quiet house, you put them in an acoustically insulated closet, which just means like R9 batting, just some sort of bats in the studs is best practice, I'd say. And then close the door. And you can you should vent the door, by the way. You should have like a vent on the door, or it should have a vent at the top and the bottom, and you need to have generally two holes in a like a little tiny closet. But all you need to do is just have a door that has venting on it, like one of those louvered doors all the way down, and you're done, just so you know. Okay, this is your gas range and your oven,
Could you
Diana.
could you just tell me about electric tankless first before you leave the water heater?
Of course. So an electric tankless is electric resistance, and it will use about 3 times as much energy, maybe 4 times as much as these water heaters. Now, I'm going to argue for putting these in because they're efficient. That amount of electricity between an on-demand and a tank heat pump like this, in just a normal house, like 4 people living in it, that amount of electricity difference is all of the driving you do in a year of driving an electric vehicle. Yeah, it's about 3,000 kilowatt hours, which each kilowatt hour gets you about 4 miles. So it's about 12,000 miles of driving in a car. So it's not efficient, but you should do it if you don't have any other choice, and just make sure you put a solar array up on the roof. I mean, if you just don't have any other space. The other thing that it does is that the amount of power, like if Diana has 100 amps, and I said, Diana, you should put in an electric on demand at 60 amps. You can see that she's quickly gonna run out of power on the panel because she's got 100 as her budget. So these are using not 60 like an on-demand electric resistance would, but 30. And the Rheem ones, they do 15. And then now they're even coming out with ones that are, it's a different metric, but how about this? I'd say these ones are 4,500 watts. Rheem has a 2,200 watt, and they make 900 watt ones now. That's all in the same metric. And you just see like the step down of power demand. So you should do electric resistance if you don't have enough space. You should just understand that it creates power constraints and costs money and such. Okay, so here you can see Taylor Swift dancing in front of Diana's new electric resistance countertop range. If you didn't know that Taylor Swift likes induction, she does. I would recommend considering the Samsung or the KitchenAid. Those are really good brands in the US, but Bosch is also, you know, people like Bosch. It's a good German brand. Samsung is Korean and excellent, and KitchenAid is like American German owned. I can't remember, but we found when I did research with my mom for hers that she liked the factory that it was coming from. And here is what your double ovens look like, and you got all sorts to pick from. You can have retro, you can have like, I'm a serious baker,
Wow.
and you can have this sort of sleek, modern look. There's tons of them, tons. So, oh, and then there's your washer dryer. And I recommend these, the condensing washer dryers that are combo products. And the LG one is the one I have, and my brother has, and Sierra Martinez from Energy Foundation has. And we're all like, you know, this is a good washing machine. Lisa and Steve Schmidt of Home Energy Analytics down in Silicon Valley, also with the LG. It's the largest model, so it has 4.5 cubic feet in it, and it's a kick-ass washing machine. Gets your laundry clean, gets it all dry. You don't have to do the drying
Interesting.
cycle. You can just wash it, and it's a really good washing machine. And then it dries your laundry. So that was, oh, the last thing I wanted you to think about, Diana, is you should put 2 to 6 kilowatts on your roof. On a 100 amp panel like you have, you can't do more than 6. You'll have to go to a 200 amp panel or something larger than 100 amps that you have, because solar is constrained to 3.8 kilowatts unless you have a fancy inverter, which would allow you to go up to 6 kilowatts. But basically, you can't put more than 3.8 kilowatts of electricity into the grid with your 100 amp panel. So 2 kilowatts, you shouldn't do less than that because you already have someone up on the roof. And you can't really do more than 6 kilowatts. And 3.8 is right on the nose if you don't want anything technically challenging.
And Sean, just a question.
Wow.
Is the way to think about it to work with the 100 amps, or is as opposed to upgrading to expand it to 200 or something?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Because when you upgrade from 100 amps, you're going to add about 3 months to 9 months on your schedule. It's going to cost you $3,000 to $20,000 to accomplish. And it's going to just kick your butt with the tedious delays and money and hassle. We just did a study for San Diego Gas and Electric and PG&E where we interviewed like 40 electricians all over the state in those territories. And We just got to hear them talk about how long it took and how much money it took. And so if you don't have to, and I don't think you do, the things that we just went through, you don't need anything more than 100 amps. You're totally fine. If you take these particular suggestions, and like you don't get electric resistance backup for your space heating system because you don't need it, not at all. Maybe get a lower power heat pump water heater or not, be okay. Yeah, I think the condensing washer dryer is kind of a big one. And you could even squeeze in an EV charger, which would be better if you did level 1, which is what I charge my car with if you're not like a heavy duty commuter. But you might need like a level 2 if you actually do commute like 30
Sean,
miles.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How much does he go for?
How much does what?
How much does this go for?
The solar array?
Yes, sir.
The solar array is about $3,000 a kilowatt to install.
Wow, that's
Very
amazing.
interesting.
Yeah, and it should have a 4-year to 8-year payback, and it'll have a 20 to 25-year warranty. So it should pay itself back about 3 or 4 times over the next 20 years.
Sean, thank you very much. That was a fantastic overview.
Yeah, hopefully
I
you get the
should
gas
do,
in your house soon.
Yeah. And there's
So-
a few questions right there about your thoughts about the heat pump dryers and so on and so forth.
Okay, so heat pump dryers. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to my booklet here so that.
Thank you, Sean.
Oh, you're welcome, John. Let's keep the party rolling here. So we're only what, a half an hour in, right? The new and
Mhm.
Wei Tai is going to go next because I want you to be able to ask him questions too. He has a slightly different house than Diane does and set of solutions. Okay, so on this dryer topic, first of all, you should just know this is my little booklet, our little booklet. Tons of us are co-authors. How to retrofit your single family homes. Okay, lots of us. We work so hard. And then it's got hyperlinked little things for all the products. Now I'm going to go down to the dryers, landscaping, fireplaces, electric laundry dryers. Okay, this is a fun graphic here because it shows you the annual electricity consumption of electric dryers of different types. And I'm going to blow this up a little bit. Okay. There. Oh, I got to shrink it a tiny bit. There. Okay. So on the left-hand side, you have condensing dryers. Okay. And then this is in blue, you have, what is, oh, I don't know what blue is. That's a weird color. It must be purple. Must be an accident. Okay. So in purple, you have heat pump dryers. And then green, you have condensing. And in orange, you have electric resistance. So it's really clear that electric resistance uses a bunch of energy. It's not entirely clear if heat pumps or condensing dryers are actually a whole lot worse than each other. They have overlap. It is true that the best heat pump dryers use far less energy than the best condensing dryers. They are different technology. A heat pump dryer is actively chilling refrigerant and using that cold refrigerant to chill the air when it comes out of the dryer. The moist, hot air chills it, actively sucks the heat out of it, and recycles that heat to go keep on doing laundry. Has the potential then to recycle heat. Fantastic, brilliant. Condensing dryers, they're not doing that. They're using electric resistance elements to heat the air that goes in. And then when the air, the wet, hot air comes out, they just have sheets of metal for it to hit and condense against, condensing, and they don't pull the heat back in. So that's why a heat pump dryer can use 1/3 as much energy as a condensing dryer, but they generally don't. They're often the condensing dryers, the best ones are as good as the not so great heat pump dryers. And condensing dryers wash themselves. I mean, have you ever had like a baby in your life? Wouldn't you like to have a baby that washes itself as opposed to having to actively do all that? As a, dad, Father's Day was yesterday. I'm like, oh yes, 3 children. Condensing
Yeah.
dryers wash themselves. Their filter gets like washed by the water as it condenses out, and heat pump dryers, you have to kind of get in there and change its diaper a lot. So that's my, I like condensing dryers. They are by far the most popular dryer in the world. this is what everyone's using in Eurasia. Heat pump dryers are more energy efficient and there's good reasons to use them. But heat pump dryers also frequently come with electric resistance backup because they think Americans are just too impatient to deal with the slow amount of time that a heat pump dryer does, which is at least twice as long. So you get these super heat pump dryers that are also powered hogs, and you're plugging them in as if they were a 30 amp electric resistance dryer, because they are, and they're a heat pump. So for staying on your 100 amp panel, Diana, I don't think you want a heat pump dryer because they come with electric resistance. I think you want one of these condensing dryers, and you should just like chill out for an extra hour and a half while your laundry dries. And so that you don't have to have a 9-month-long process of a service upgrade. Oh, there's 12 messages here. Okay, so Kathy, I answered your thoughts on heat pump dryers. They're good, but there's reasons to not get them. And Kathy's right that I should mention the solar arrays are still 26% off, the investment tax credited. So your pricing is a quarter off. It's still great. And all of us have fought hard for that political win year after year, because we've been trying to kill it since 2011. Okay, then Faramaz. Okay, Faramaz wants to know, if you have a 3.8 kW PV array, does that affect how many amps you can use on your 100-watt electric panel for appliances? No. But Tom Cabot, would you like to explain a little bit? Want to take yourself off mute?
Oh, sure. Sure. Thanks, Sean. Yeah, so the way the panel sizing works with solar and the electrification is that you can basically size solar to be about 20% as big as the main panel rating. So you could backfeed solar into a 100 amp panel on a 20 amp breaker. And so lots of inverters are sized to supply that 3.8 kilowatts that is allowed to flow on the 20 amp breaker. And then some of the inverters are
This is an example that Tom made of a panel like this that has a 20 amp solar array, but this is a 100 amp panel. So in blue are all the things you just normally have as wires. But we were trying to keep this on 100 amps, so this is one way of doing that, just one of the many, where he has a hybrid heat pump dryer, so that is electric resistance. The one I was like, don't do it. He does have, in here, this is a combined range. Diana, because you have ovens on the wall and a range, you're gonna have to have special circuits for each. It takes up more power. If you were in a real pinch, I'd be like, well, why don't you combine them both into one machine? And that would save about half the power being allocated to cooking. But you don't need to. I just not like, you could, but I don't think you should, because you already have your whole physical set up that way. So then this is a low power heat pump water heater though. This is the ream that we were mentioning is not the 30 amp, but it's the 15 amp, or I said it's not the 4,500 watt model, but the 2250 watt model, which is also Stiebel Eltron. Stiebel Eltron makes them that way standard. So Stiebel Eltron's standard model, which may or may not be noisy, and Ream's model too. So, and then here you have an EV charger also. Here you have your heat pump, just like the one that we just discussed, and you got the furnace removed there. So this is pretty close to what your panel would look like afterwards with 100 amps and that up to like 6 kilowatt solar array that's on the 20 amp circuit. So this is one way of doing it. In the booklet, here's an example of someone who has a 3,000 square foot home on that same 100 amp panel. And in this case, they're using load sharing plugs. These are 240 volt plug strips, kind of where you plug 2 appliances into one plug and it balances. So it's like a smart plug. I have one here in my hands. I have 2, in fact. This is one made by Simple Switch. It's about this big, so it doesn't look enormous, but that's one. This is a 240 volt plug strip. So you stick 2 appliances, like a water heater and a dryer, like you're seeing here, where there's a cooktop and an EV charger, and then a dryer and a water heater. This is another one. This is NeoCharge. The other one was Simple Switch. Same thing. You can actually see the plug, and you can see the plug, right? The primary and the secondary, and then you can see well, I guess the plug also. I don't have enough words for that. You can see 2 receptacles. There we go. Receptacle, and plug. So these are ways to get two appliances in the same plug. Okay. So Danny, Michelle Ringer says, what solar options are available if you can't put solar on your roof? You can put it in your backyard. I was just looking at Detroit retrofits where they didn't have permission from the landlord necessarily. So they just put the solar array up, and they make folding solar arrays now that are like briefcase solar that you just unfurl and stick them up. You kind of think of them like as a backyard pool. You know, they just like, they're not the big heavy metal pool that you dig a hole in the ground. It's the kind that just pops up, you fill with water. They make solar arrays that are essentially like that. Just plug them in, and you can actually get similarly plug in inverters and batteries, and you can plug devices into them and have a little resiliency hub that's just a solar array and a battery and such. And will the panels be lighter in the future? Not really, because they're glass. There's a little bit now, they've made them lighter because they don't necessarily put metal on the outside, but they're still like big sheets of glass. So they're not that heavy. They're about 3 pounds per square foot. Susan, okay, Danny Gray asked, can you fit a level 2 EV charger into a 100-amp panel? Yes. In this case, this EV charging here is 38 miles per hour. So we're looking at this EV charger here. This EV charger is on a 40-amp circuit, which is the same circuit that you'd have for a stove. That's like pretty much the biggest circuit usually houses have is for the stove, 40 amps. So that's the right one to pair with a level 2 EV charger if you were doing one of these smart plugs. Because what would happen basically is you only cook 40 minutes a day tops. We've studied tons, like dozens and dozens of households. How much do they cook? And we found the maximum most people cook, max, is 45 minutes in the whole day cumulatively. So you hardly ever cook. So this plug is just sitting there with tons of power available to it, and you can charge your car. And using one of these devices, you can do them both at the same time. You can cook and you can charge your car. So there's a few of those. So yes, Danny, you can. You just might want to double use that plug.
Shall we jump to Wei Tai's case study
right.
in a few minutes?
Let's do that. I apologize. Yes, Wei Tai, let me stop, and I'll start answering questions in the chat by typing. You should take over.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that overview. Hello, everybody. My name's Wei Tai, and I'm calling in from the San Francisco Bay Area.
Hello.
Hello. And my story
Hello,
actually.
how you doing?
Hello. Yeah, my story 3 years ago, I went to a workshop.
Hello.
I went to a workshop just like the one we're attending now, where Sean came to Berkeley, California to give a presentation on building electrification, which is a word that I really had not heard of much of before that time. And I thought at the time that getting rid of fossil fuels from my home would be difficult, time-consuming, expensive. But I ended up, after attending his workshop, as you guys are doing now, finding out that I was wrong about all of those. So I thought I would just give you a little bit of a case study today. Sean asked me to say, what did I learn from his session and seminar way back when? And so let me pull up some slides here to share with you. And we'll do a little walking tour of the electrification of my home. And this is what I love up in Northern California. And one of the first questions I asked myself after we sat through Sean's presentation was, if I want to be a fossil fuel home running just on clean energy, what are the fossil fuel appliances I have to get rid of? And so in my house, it turned out to be the gas furnace, the gas hot water heater, the gas cooktop, and our gas fireplace. And when I actually thought, oh, well, let me just go figure out how much is this going to cost to do this, and what is the steps and what are the benefits. And I thought that I would start this project and just go out and get some cost quotes and then get started on my work. And so, yeah, actually partly what I want to do here is tell you like some of the surprises that I had in going about this project. But when I actually found a contractor to do this work, they suggested that I do something called an energy audit before I got started purchasing my all-electric appliances like Sean showed you. And I thought they were just actually trying to sell me something extra. But they said, nope, we want to do this and audit your energy usage because we want to then properly size the equipment and know what to quote you. So I thought this was beneficial. And so it was a $550 charge, which they agreed to credit towards an actual, if I ended up going through with the electrification, they would credit to me. But they actually came in and they audited my house. And this is an example of my library where they took this thermal gun to show where energy was leaking. The darker colors show colder and brighter colors show warmer. And so you could see that actually when I was heating up my house and heat was leaking out of the attic. So they actually discovered and showed me why it was important to do things like gap sealing to save energy and improve the quality of air in my space. And so on the left, you can see what a typical pipe going through and having an air gap. But if you foam seal it, that saves energy, right? And so the thesis of this is that if you do these energy efficiency exercises first, before you electrify your house, you can reduce your load. And so this is a chart that the vendor, the contractor did of my house, showing the before and after load of my house. The left side shows how much in red, the heating load I had, and in blue, the cooling load. And they said if I did insulated my attic, I did the gap sealing and so forth, I would be able to reduce my load by 44% and result in the lower loads on the right side. And I knew that energy efficiency actually has an excellent payoff, but wanted just to translate why it pays off because you can buy smaller sized equipment rather than the larger size equipment. And if I looked at it from buying a car, if you had to carry really heavy loads around, you might need a big truck, which costs a lot of money, $50,000, and has bad gas mileage. But if you could reduce your loads, not carry around such heavy things, well, maybe you only have to pay $16,000 for the car and you get better gas mileage. So I think that was sort of the parable of why you do energy efficiency first before get starting with your electrification process. And so that was one of the aha learnings that I didn't expect when I got started with this. So let me actually take you on a quick walking tour of my house and show you a few of the features. We're in my kitchen right now, and I had formerly a gas cooktop over there, which we loved, but which after we saw what an induction electric cooktop could do, we were sort of intrigued to try it. And so I'd never seen an induction electric or used one before. It's not that common in the US, so I didn't even know how they worked, but it turns out we needed a special pan, a steel pan that could be a magnet could attach to, because this is like magnetic induction, right? So that's a magnet, and yep, this pan is gonna work. And if I put it down on the surface here, if I put it down on the surface here, I'm gonna turn it on high, put my hand on the stove. Actually, I'm not burning myself. It's only going to happen when you put that magnetic steel right on top of that. And then I certainly wouldn't put my hand on here, but then if I poured some water in here, it'll start to boil. We're not going to probably have time now just to show you this demo of boiling water. But one of the great things of this stove is that there's no gas emissions coming out of it. Oh, wow, look, the water is actually boiling so quickly. This was like astonishing. Can you guys see that? Just one of the things that we learned about induction electric cooking was how fast it was in its performance. Cool. So let me take you over to our heating and cooling, our HVAC. We used to have vent ducts in the roof. You can see behind my head. We had a whole ducted system up there, and our vendor suggested to demise that or get rid of all of that. In exchange, we put up these heat pump mini splits that you can see over my shoulder there. And we have 8 of those mini split heads inside our house, each of them controlled by a remote control. And right now it's summertime up here, and it's pretty hot out here in San Francisco. I'm going to turn it on. And can you see, hopefully?
Yep.
It's opening up and starting to go. So I could, everybody, every one of these or every room in the house has their own temperature control. So if somebody likes it warmer or somebody likes it cooler, they can adjust the temperature to their own preference in their own bedroom. So that was sort of cool. The last stop we're going to do is my fireplace. I had a gas fireplace before, and I started to hear about electric fireplaces from Sean, and over your shoulder, Sean, right? You've got an electric fireplace. we'll show the group that afterwards. But this one, I actually did this myself. I just bought a new electric log set, which uses LED lighting on the front there to show the glowing embers. And the flames in the back is actually a projected image. It's like a projector throwing an image against the back of the fireplace. And so that's my low cost, like $400 retrofit, do it yourself.
Yes, can you send that to me? I need that.
I'll send you mine, actually. I was going to upgrade to some of the
Me
new
too, please.
colored ones. Yeah, this one is called Napoleon. The brand is Napoleon. And that was not that expensive to do, which was another benefit. So,
Well, it looks great.
thank you very much. Let me go back to sharing a couple more pictures of the outside of my house so that, as I mentioned, the 8 mini splits were connected to 2 heat pumps outside. It's a Fujitsu product. And then inside the bedrooms and so forth, my wife was very concerned that these would be ugly looking. But afterwards, the good news is when you put it up there, you don't really notice them much anymore, and they don't look that bad, but we'll leave it to you to decide whether you think they're ugly or not. On the heat pump hot water heater, I ended up going with the one on the left, which is different from the one Sean showed you because it's a 2-part or a split unit where the tank, in my case, 83 gallons is on the inside and the heat pump is on the outside. Sean showed you the single units over on the right side. And so they're just different form factors and different.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Could you explain to me what the differences is between the right and the left one?
Sure. Well, the one on the right-hand side is the one that gets its heat from the room inside there. And so it's using the heat from the room and putting it into the water there. On the one on the left, it's getting the heat from outside the house. And then it sends the water into the house. You know, you have to be within about 50 feet.
Oh, yeah, I got it now. Thank you.
Okay.
One
And,
thing that, just to add to that is that the product on the right is designed for American showering behavior. The product on the left is a specialized product from Japan, and it's designed to meet sitting tubs, which is 100 to 150 gallons of hot water after you shower. So the heat pump on the right produces about 4,500 BTUs per hour, and the one on the left produces 16,000, like 4 times as much, so that it can meet the bathing needs of people.
Thank you, Sean, for clarifying. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I do have a Japanese soaking tub in my house, but I didn't know that's the reason I bought it. One thing that was mentioned earlier was the pollution that comes from gas cooktop. And I love this image taken by the Sierra Club with a thermal camera showing the pollutants that are actually coming out of the gas cooktop, which, you know, were invisible to us, but which once you know about it, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't have a propane grill in my house, so why do I let my gas cooktop go like that? I mean, if we could see what's coming out, I think we'd all want to get rid of that very quickly. Let me touch on the budget for how much all this costs. It was not as inexpensive as I'd hoped, but it also wasn't crazy as well. The mini splits were the biggest part of the expense, $27,000 out of the $56,000. And you can see the energy efficiency, installation, $11,000, and so on down the line. At the time I did this in 2019, there was only a $500 federal tax credit. And so there was not very many incentives available compared to today, where there are incentives on multiple line items here to save some money. And after doing that, by the way, I totally retrofitted all those 4 and got rid of all my fossil fuel appliances in 45 days. Just a month and a half from the day the workers came to get started. And so that let me, by the fall in November, to disconnect from the gas grid. So that's me on the left, shutting off the gas meter for the last time. I called PG&E and they come and pick it up for free. Took away my gas meter and I was off the gas grid. And so I really never imagined at the beginning of that year, before I met Sean, that I would have a zero emission home powered by my own 15 solar panels, plus any, which do about 60% of my load. That the remaining 40% I buy from the grid from MCE, my local community choice aggregator, with their 100% renewable program. So I can say that my home is zero emission. My electric car that I charge from my home is zero emission. And so it's not actually that hard to live a zero emission lifestyle as we might think. Now, what are the costs of doing this? After a year of having done it, I dug out 5 years of my PG&E bills to see that you could see in my previous 4 years about $1,000, $1,200, gas being blue, yellow being electric. And after the cutoff, the 5th year, the costs actually were slightly less, certainly more on the electricity side, but overall slightly less. So as we've learned, these are highly efficient technologies that can be cost effective as well. So it was a happy ending here. And I thank Sean for being the ultimate teacher, a science teacher, and really getting me along the road to this. And I would encourage everybody else, just like it's not as hard, but there are a lot of fun things to learn about it. And so happy to take any questions.
That was great, Wei-Tai. Thank you. Thank you. Would it be more efficient if somebody raised their hand if you had a question and we could just take it live rather
Sure.
than reading and promoting it? Anybody have any questions for Wei-Tai and or Sean?
Well, there was one about the cost of the mini splits. I don't know if you can speak to this, Wei-Tai. What you had your cost there, the $26,000, I think, for 8 heads.
Yep.
Okay, so I have this up to 5 zones here, and this is pricing not Bay Area, which is important because it's the most expensive market in the country. But this is what it costs from Eugene up to about Seattle. Okay, this is the heat pump store for ductless mini splits. This is their official pricing, and they have 50 staff, you know, so like they're working every day putting in lots, and they only do mini splits. So you're seeing a 9,000 BTU heat pump, 1 head, just 1 fan coil in the wall, $4,500. Slightly more heat production, 12,000 BTUs, $4,750. Now 2 zones is 7,000, and it's an 18,000 BTU heat pump, and that's probably all a lot of smaller homes need. It's just 18,000. 24,000 is in the Bay Area. Just saying, like San Francisco, coastal California, 18,000, 24,000 is frequently enough. But if you have a bigger house, like a 3,000, 4,000 plus square foot house, then you're going to start seeing 4 zones, 5 zones, and this is 42,000 BTUs. It's called also 3.5 tons. So this is what you'd pay up in Oregon, which is usually 50% more. Well, usually the Bay Area is about 50% more expensive. It's just terrible, but true. It's, you know, I don't have to tell you, it's the Bay Area for all the reasons, you know. So, so this is what it could cost you. And up here in Arcata, I put in a single zone heat pump that was an 18,000 BTU, and I got it for 5,000, not 5,600. Just to say, like, you know, these are actual normal prices that you'd pay, not in the Bay Area. If it's the Bay Area, you know, it's more.
Yeah, there's to that point, I would say there are not many contractors, so there's not that much competition, right? Many of the contractors who I called want to try to make you stick with gas, right? They say, why do you want to change your gas water heater? I'll just give you another gas water heater. I'll just give you another gas furnace. And so, you know, I spent more time trying to convince them, or it's easy, I could just hang up on them. But, you know, I hope that we'll see more knowledgeable contractors in the market to help more and more people with this big trend.
Yeah, don't forget, California is the worst place in the whole country. Like, I think you'd have an easier time electrifying in West Virginia.
Yes, I agree. I agree, Sean.
Hey, Joey, you wanted to ask a question or something? You want to speak up?
Yes, I did. So when you have to put a mini split in each room?
You know, you don't. So I have a 1,200 square foot house. It has 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, a few common areas. We have 1 heat pump in the living room, and it heats the whole house. Not equally. You know, the living room's warm. The bedrooms are cool. But it heats the whole house because it meets the whole house's load, and it's got a fan. But if I close the doors to the bedrooms, they get kind of cold in the wintertime. I have to keep them open because it's not like a fan distribution system. But that's the way this house always was. You know, it started off with the wood fireplace right next to where the heat pump is now from its 1919 construction. And then in the 40s, they put in a gas wall furnace right next to the heat pump where it is now. It's never changed in 100 and something years. And we all still happily live in it with 1 heat pump fan coil in the living room for the house. But it's not as comfortable as what Wei-Tai has. But Wei-Tai, is in a different economic strata than I am.
No, I just am not as
Old
knowledgeable.
farmhouse, you know.
So-
When they said put one in each bedroom, I just said, oh, okay. Now I know. Sean, you didn't tell me that 3 years ago.
Well, I know. Well, you paid for your comfort, and you should have comfort. You're a wonderful person.
And there's
I'm glad you
value
love
in
it.
your house. It
There's
adds value to your house.
Exactly.
It just shows there are multiple strategies. So let's go with Craig, Antonina, and Wendy.
Okay, and then after that, I want to share a slide, so we'll do that.
We're almost done in 2 minutes. Hey, Craig, you're first.
All right, thank you for this. Question for Sean to get to later is just to have the link to that workbook or that pamphlet, or whatever. So just would like to see that in the chat. If
We
maybe
did
I
put
missed
that
it.
in the chat, Craig.
We put it a
Okay.
couple times, but I'll email
Okay.
it to you, Craig.
Great,
There
thank
again
you.
now. I just put it in.
And Wei Tai, thank you for your example of this. I thought I was going to have to upgrade my electrical panel, but I'm encouraged with what you said, Sean. And Wei, did you find you needed to change your panel?
Well, my home was constructed in 2004, so it's a pretty new home, and it already had like a 200 amp panel. So no, I didn't have to further upgrade.
Okay, great.
And Here's
Yep.
examples. Span and Coben are two that are designed specifically so you can plug in 200 amps of stuff into a 100 amp service. They have smart panels. So these are two that are very popular. The Coben and SMUD is the leader in our country in doing this work, and they're the ones that are showing how to do 200 amps of stuff on 100 amps of service with these.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome. And Antonia?
Yeah,
Antonina.
Antonina. So thank you. This is an incredible presentation. I've seen you, spreading your knowledge around the climate, electrification groups for years. And this is a wonderful presentation. And thanks, Wei Tai. I've been to his house. This is really great, and I'm glad it will continue. I do have a question about, and it may be a longer question than for now, maybe for next time, but about the refrigerants, because one of the things that came up with Wei Tai's heat pump is that it works on CO2. And since, we're part of the Climate Reality Project, and we want to understand, the sort of trade-offs we're making of going forward with electrification fast, but, what are our options?
Well, right now, refrigerants are about 1% of the problem. And when you do an analysis of the refrigerants, like let's say you had a water heater and all the refrigerants leaked, those unitary ones I was showing, that amount of leakage of refrigerant equals the amount of leakage of methane that's coming from your existing water heater, just the amount that's dedicated to your water heater. Those two are equal amounts of climate change. But your water heater is doing that every year, and your heat pump would not likely ever fail that badly, ever. So it is an order of magnitude times 2, more or less, a worse problem to have the methane leakage, which is roughly 40% of climate change right now is methane that's been leaked, not even combusted. So it is, and it's also the fast acting part because it does all of its work in the next 10 years. So the studies say like turning off the methane, and particularly leaked methane, is the trick to like solving near-term climate change, because that's the magnifying lens of the next 10 years versus CO2, which is 100 years of impact, but relatively little every year. So yeah, you should electrify immediately and not worry about the refrigerants if you can't get the best kinds. It's not that it's not a problem, but it's not on the same scale as the methane leakage from your house's access to methane gas.
That was extremely clear and extremely helpful. So thank you.
Let's do one more question from Wendy, and then
One
we'll.
more question, and then we're going to take a picture. So don't leave.
Okay.
Quick.
Go ahead, Wendy.
My question is, are you saying that if you put in a heat pump, you have to put in the splits? Because I thought you could just put the heat pump and you can have central air and heat.
You're correct. I think in Sean's first example with Diana, that was a central heat pump version with ducted systems. In my house, even though I had a ducted system like Diana, my contractor suggested to take all the ducts out and install a mini split system instead. So they're, different techniques. And maybe let me defer to Sean to fill that in.
One other question, and this is why I'm here, is that I'm trying to find somebody to put solar panels on my house, and I feel like I've just jumped into the,
Excuse me.
Oh,
Excuse
yes.
me. Excuse me. John, would it be alright if you could turn your camera off, please? I think you. I don't. I'm
what?
sorry. I'm sneezing. I'm sorry. John, I think you need to turn the camera off. I don't think you know it's on.
Oh, John Barros. Okay.
Go ahead, Wendy, finish your question. You want to go solar, but
I want to go solar, but trying to figure out who to go with. I've had 3 people, they're super pushy. They want to give you, they encourage you to take the loan out so they can make the 10%. Or, like you said, you want to put in a gas water heater. Why do you don't take it out? Keep it gas, and I'm going, it's like a nightmare. It's just a nightmare. And I don't know how to go about doing it.
Well, there are some people who like electrify my home. So Electrify My Home is my favorite Bay Area contractor, at least. And there's lots of great people. So I don't mean to say there aren't lots of great people. Just gonna say
Can you
briefly.
recommend some for Los Angeles?
Well, the house doctors, it's the home doctor. What is the name?
The house doctors, I believe.
House doctors, right? So that's a house doctors are the house doctors. I'll just write in there.
Building doctors, thank
Building doctors. Okay.
Yeah, we need to sort of wrap this up. And the solar, Wendy, solar is such a great question, but it's a big one. So maybe that's something we can add to an agenda on another meeting to go into a little bit further.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll happily dig in.
Yeah.
And Wendy, email us because we'd be happy to talk to you about it too. We put solar, we had the same experience. We know what you're talking about. So reach out to Diana and I, and we'll reach back out to you, the specifics.
And I just want to take, so I would like to just share my screen. So Sean, can you stop sharing there? And because if you liked the idea of being, or maybe you would like to be a case study, how many of you think it would be nice? So go ahead and take a picture of this screen. So if you would like to be a future case study, this is the information that Sean needs, and this is basically what I provided him to show. So take a screenshot of that, basically electric panel. I'll let you take a picture. And then send it to SFV, Climate Reality @gmail.com. And we can follow that up. We'll also let you know about the next Ask Sean show. We are part of the Switches On. If you're not familiar, this is a great resource, the switcheson.org. So check that out. And again, go ahead and book next, the 3rd Monday in July, July 18th. We're going to do this again. You can register at bit.ly, Ask Sean Show. And I put some information about the San Fernando Valley chapter, and I think Linda and Tristan, you guys put some information in about the OC chapter. So we so appreciate everybody being here. Great questions, and Sean,
Those were all great questions.
feel free to continue to add questions to the chat, but it is time for us to sort of sign off.
So can we get a picture?
Mark,
I want to take a group picture, if that's okay. Okay.
Our first show, you guys. We
Our
did
first
it.
show, we gotta, this is the Unity. This is California.
Woohoo!
California electrification. So everybody could turn your, okay, say clean energy.
Honestly, fuck fossil fuel.
Woo.
There you go.
Yay! Yay!
Y'all
Thanks,
take care.
Linda.
Have a nice
That's
evening.
great.
See you next time.
Thank you, John. Thank you,
Thank you, Sean.
Bayside. Thank you, Tristan. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Good
Bye.
to see you all.
Bye.